Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, your host for the Voice of Leadership and for Dr. Karen Speaks Leadership. And today I am talking about the care and feeding of orchids part two. And if you heard part one, you will know that more than a year ago, I received a beautiful orchid plant from my cousin and his wife. And not being the horticulturist myself, I had a hard time figuring out how do I care for this orchid and how do I keep it alive? Well, I talked about that in episode 442, which was in September of 2023. And I was so happy at that time that I had kept that orchid blooming for almost 4 months, which really was quite a feat for me. Well, since that time, many other things have happened to the orchid. And so let me give you an update. As I promised, I'd come back, give an update, and have some additional leadership lessons that we can learn from the care and feeding of orchids. Well, first of all, the orchid plant had very healthy green leaves, and I did a really great job with watering it so that it wasn't overwatered or underwatered, and the green leaves stayed beautiful for a long time. And then the beginning of the year happened, and my schedule changed, and I started traveling much more aggressively. And I was gone for long periods of time, 10 to 14 days. And I had to figure out what to do with this orchid. Well, in the meantime, I also wanted the orchid to bloom again. So I consulted a very good friend of mine who truly has a green thumb and has a house full of blooming, beautiful orchids and does a great job. And so she gave me some tips about how to make it bloom again. And that looked like it was going to be a very time-consuming process for someone like me who's traveling often and on the road. So I said, well, I'll just wait until a little bit later before I implement some of those strategies. Well, in the meantime, with all of this aggressive traveling that I was doing, I had to figure out how do I water this orchid and keep it alive until I come back. Well, one of the times I watered the orchid too much. I was trying to make that water last until I would return. When I got home, I saw the dreaded yellow leaves of the beautiful green leaves. They had turned yellow. And from all the research that I did last year, I knew that that meant the orchid had gotten too much water. So now my poor orchid was drowning in water and it was dying. So when I touched those yellow leaves, they just fell off right into my hands. So I had about two good leaves left. And I said, okay, let me see if I can salvage these two that are remaining. So then I'll go on the next trip and I said, okay, this time I'm not going to overwater the plant. So I just make sure I give the plant just a small amount of water. And when I came back, the plant was stressed in the opposite direction. Now it was starving. Now it was dying of thirst and it was shriveling up. And I lost one of the two good leaves, and the one that was remaining was small and puny and didn't look like he was going to make it either. So then I was like, what do I do now? And I wasn't really sure how to salvage this, but I figured, okay, let me work on it. I have salvaged plants in the past, brought them back from near disaster, and I thought, well, I could do it again. So let me figure it out and let me work on it. Well, in the meantime, the same wonderful first cousin of mine and his wife, they gave me another beautiful orchid plant for this year. And it was even more spectacular than last year. It had more green plants in it. It was more diverse. And then I thought, oh, how nice. I will then cultivate both of these plants. However, my husband took a look at the first plant and he said, nope, this plant is gone. It has outlived its life. It's time for it to go. I said, no, no, I don't want it to go. I want to bring it back to health. He said, time to go. You have a new plant now. And so he sent the plant on to plant heaven. And then I have the new plant that I'm cultivating and working on at the moment. And so far, so good. The new plant is still alive. Well, there are a lot of lessons in all of this about what to pay attention to and how to think about everything that happened. I know that in my case, when my circumstances changed, I really needed to make some changes too. Now, what I could have done with the plant when my circumstances changed, now my friend, unfortunately, she was recovering from surgery at the hospital, so I didn't want to do this first thing, which was I could have sent the plant to her. It could have been in the plant hospital. She would have put it in with all of her plants, took care of it. It probably would have done much better as she would have returned it to me in great shape. However, it was not a good time for me to do that because of her own circumstances. The other thing that I really could have done was to get one of those time released water bulbs and put that in the plant so that therefore it would get water while it was gone, but not too much and not too little. Now, I didn't do any of those things. And so that's why I'm telling you this story about the fate of the plant and what happened to the orchid. So, as far as leadership lessons, there are several that I want to share with you about this experience. Number one, in leadership, when you are dealing with something new, a new set of circumstances, maybe where you don't have knowledge and expertise, get outside help. Consult with knowledgeable people. Now, you know, I did get outside help. I studied books, I talked to people. So I did consult and get outside help. That's number one. Number two, however, is even more important, which is follow the expertise that your outside consultant shares with you. I followed some of it, but not all of it. And this really reminds me of some of my clients. We'll be talking about things and I'll make some recommendations for what their next steps might be. And they might, for various reasons, just like I did with the orchid, just not implement whatever it is that we're talking about. And then later on, when the orchid dies or the leaves turn yellow or whatever is happening in their organization, they'll come back and I'll say, well, did you implement what we talked about? Well, no, we didn't do that. And of course, I had predicted upfront that this would be the outcome. And they say, yeah, we remember that. And yet, life gets in the way. There are reasons sometimes why we really don't implement what we know to do and what we've heard about from our outside consultants and experts. So, in those cases, you can't always do everything yourself because, as I mentioned, life gets in the way. So, that brings me to number three is to get hands-on help for whatever it is that you're doing. And in my case, that hands-on help could have been in the form of my friend who could have been babysitting the plant, or someone else could have babysat the plant while I was gone. And I could have gotten some tech help, which reminds me metaphorically, think about the technology that we use, including artificial intelligence. Well, that little water bulb would have been just a picture of that. Could have gotten some outside help to be my hands when I wasn't there. And so you want to do the same thing in your organization. You want to get help from others who are in the organization and help from those who are outside the organization. This extends your reach and your ability to make a difference. And then, of course, when circumstances change, you want to change strategies. Now, last year, it was perfectly fine because I was in town most weeks and I could water the plant every week and give it that small amount of water that it needed. And in this year, my circumstances changed. I wasn't available to water the plant every single week in the same way. So that requires new strategies. So in your business, when your circumstances change, look at your procedures, look at your processes, and identify what also needs to alter and what also needs to change, and make sure that you make the changes that go with the season that you're in your business. And then the next item, if this is important, we have to accept that all things come to an end. There is a natural cycle of life, and there's an end date to everything. So we want to remember the good times that we had with those who took the journey with us up to this point, and then learn to say goodbye. And there is an art to saying goodbye. You take some time in saying goodbye when it's real people and yet you have to say goodbye. And I don't know if you remember, but in the first episode, when I talked about lessons from orchids and orchid care, I talked about the fact that when a flower was starting to fade, how important it was to start taking that off from the orchid so that it didn't take up a lot of extra nutrients from new growth that was going to be coming behind it. Well, the same thing is true when I was trying to hold on to this plant and not let it go to plant heaven. A lot of care and effort would have been taken to bring it back to life. Now, was it possible to bring it back? Probably. And yet, think about the resources involved when it had already served its time. And when you think about that in your organization, there are some people who are there with you for a limited season. And when their season is up, let them go. Let them go to another place where they can continue to add value. Yes, you could grow, develop, and nurture them. However, the effort that it would take might take away from the resources that you have to also grow and nurture those who are the perfect fit for where you are now. And a lot of times I've watched people take too long trying to resuscitate something that they really ought to let go in their organizations. And this siphons away energy from other parts of the organization, and it causes those who are the perfect fit from where you are right now to become very frustrated and discouraged because they need your attention and cultivation to grow as well. So we must learn to say goodbye and realize that we can hold on to some people too long. So you don't want to be in that position, which then hampers your entire organization. And then, of course, when you let go of those things that are taking up a lot of time, even though you can do it, maybe it's not the best use of your time, then that brings me to the last item, which is to welcome and usher in the new. And I'll tell you, my new orchid is bigger, it's fancier, it's beautiful, and I can devote my energy and time to the new orchid and give it the proper lighting, the proper water, and the proper care. And the new orchid is the orchid for this time and for this season in my life. So think about all of those things about getting outside help, consulting with knowledgeable people. Number two, following the expertise that you learn about. Three, getting the hands-on help when you can't do it yourself. Delegate to others. Bring in technology, the AI that you might need. Number four, when circumstances change, you change strategies. Don't do the same thing. And number five, accept that all things do have a season and you have to let go and say goodbye sometimes. And then number six, to welcome and usher in the new and put your energy and food and sustenance and resources on growing whatever that new thing is in your organization. So, as we close today, I want to share a reading from Ecclesiastes, the third chapter. And this is very relevant for what we're talking about today. And it says, starting with verse 1, to everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sow, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. So let me ask you, what time is it? in your organization. What is it that you need to do? What is it that makes the most sense for your current season and for ensuring that your organization grows, is sustained, and adds the value that you were intended to add? So have a blessed day and look forward to seeing you next time. Hello, this is Dr. Karen, and I want to tell you about my book, Lead Yourself First, the Senior Leader's Guide to Engaging Your People for Greater Performance and Impact. This book is about playing the music that only you can play. Leadership is about more than following clever techniques. You are the instrument of your leadership. People are inspired by you and how you show up. In chapter 3 of the book, which is called Forge Your Own Pathway, I share many experiences of creating a pathway forward when a pathway didn't exist beforehand. Sometimes that path is created through service, such as a time that I was taking a train every week from Wiesbaden to Frankfurt, Germany, to volunteer in the Army Hospital, the 97th General, and I was volunteering once a week as a psychologist. Little did I know that this volunteer job would later become a full-time employment opportunity for me. Because of the volunteer service, I was in the right place at the right time when the doors opened up. The metaphor that I often use for creating opportunities is the ability to see possibilities where none are visible. And I call this creating blizzard food. So just imagine, just like in Colorado, this could happen at any time. There might be a raging blizzard outside. You haven't gone to the grocery store yet. There's no obvious food in the refrigerator or the pantry. Yet, if you look hard enough, there is hidden food, and you can use it to create delicious meals for you and also your guests. So I encourage you, get your own copy of Lead Yourself First. Forge your own pathway forward. Create your own opportunities. Be the instrument of your leadership and create some delicious blizzard food. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of TRANSLEADERSHIP Incorporated. Did you know that workplaces can make a significant difference in the lives of people and that you can create a positive culture that gets positive business results and also produces positive life experiences for your employees and your clients and customers? You can make a significant contribution to the world by creating the kind of culture where your people can bring their gifts to provide the most relevant and excellent products and services to your marketplace. What the research shows is that companies with excellent leadership are also more profitable. So as you flourish and as you grow in the world, you can do more for yourself as well as for others. So if this is resonating with you and you want to create a positive, profitable, and powerful corporate culture, and you care about succession, leaving the organization in a better position than when you found it, do keep in mind that that kind of legacy is something that's intentional. And I am happy to partner with you to take your organization to the next level and create that positive leadership culture. So reach me at Dr. Karen, at transleadership.com. Hi, this is Dr. Karen Wilson Starks, President and CEO of TRANSLEADERSHIP Incorporated. And I want to let you know that I am running a special promotion right now. If you are a CEO or executive leader in a medium to large size company and you care about how your people are treated, and especially if you share our biblical values, and right now, You may be facing difficult decisions where you want some additional perspective. You may be planning for succession in your company and developing people and preparing the organization for that succession. Or perhaps right now you're going through change. You're leading change. Maybe there's a merger, there's an acquisition. Whatever you're facing in terms of leadership, including developing your executive team, contact me, give me a call so we can do a discovery meeting to see what's going on. And here's the special promotion. The promotion is that in addition to your discovery time, I will interview up to 3 people, additional people from your executive team, so you have even greater context and feedback about where to go next. So reach out to me at Dr. Karen, Dr. period, Karen at transleadership.com or phone me at 719-534-0949 extension 1. I look forward to hearing from you and to coming alongside you to complete and continue your leadership journey with a positivity and profitability in your organization. You've been listening to The Voice of Leadership with me, Dr. Karen Wilson Starks. And I want to give a special thanks to jazz saxophonist Ron McMillan for granting us permission to use his gifted music on our show. Thanks for listening, and remember to go to my website, transleadership.com, for more strategies, insights, and leadership resources.